All right, welcome. We'll get started. Job search. So once again, this is part of a week-long series, quick parts to really amp up your job search and give you some direction. This is all based on questions that we commonly get. In this session, there's three big things that we want to talk about. One is keywords, and we throw this term around all the time, so breaking that into actually what it is. Search engines and the efficiencies and making them really work for us. And then we're going to touch upon what can I do beyond the computer. So keywords, we throw this out and every time, and I talk to people all the time, and I do this constantly where I say, what are your keywords? What are the keywords that you're looking for? What it means is, think about like this, like when you do a job search, what are the words you're putting in? When you look at job descriptions, what are the words you see that keep repeating themselves? Now, some people will turn around, they'll take a job description they really like, and they will take that whole job description and they'll put it into like a word cloud or word art, something where they can see the words get bigger based on how frequently they're used. And that's something that's a helpful tool to say, okay, maybe those become the search words you want to use, or maybe they become other terms that you want to make sure are used when you're doing things like branding. So it might be the tagline or headline at the top of a resume that you use, or if you do your LinkedIn, it's something that you want to repeat because you see it repeated and you want to match. When thinking about keywords, they can come from a lot of places. Usually the easy place and the first one we describe is a job description. So just what we just talked about, what's repeated. The other thing I would say, though, is you can always expand that thought. And that helps us if, one, our thought's already expanded and we're not really sure where to start from, or if we're feeling stuck. And where that can come from is starting to think about, what do you care about? So do I care about what the organization does that I want to work for? Do I want them to be in a certain field? Do I want them to be leaders in an area? Is it content, or is it like what they're all about? Or do I know, when I say environmental factors, what I mean is, do you work for a big company or a small company? Do you work independently or do you work part of a team? Do you have a certain wage, certain hours, certain conditions that really make up all these other components of the job? Job title, that's pretty clear. That's the one we see a lot of. Or who you serve. So sometimes everything's fuzzy and we're not sure where to start from, but what we can do is look at who I want to be serving or working with. One resource that's helpful to start getting your mind around where are these words and what can I be using, ONET is something that I like. So ONET is a government database. It just really takes a lot of job descriptions and puts them in all together. So in it, it also has a lot of other tools, like it has a generic a career assessment tool that you can use. It tries to talk to other government things like the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So it tries to use the same language. Where I see it helping you, and this is just for an example, we're looking at marketing. Couple things that I like to bring people's attention to. One is, if I am doing a job title search, here's a bunch of different titles, all for marketing. So some fields have a lot of different words to say the same thing. This gives us help to just kind of start identifying what else might be good when you're doing a search. Tasks is a great thing to compare to your resume. Also a great thing to start looking at this and say, where do I see the repetition? Technology, same thing. And then we're going to jump down to the bottom. Not every description, but most of them will have related occupations. So if I'm searching and I'm thinking marketing is something that I'm really interested in, but I'm finding that every job description I find just isn't really appealing to me, there's something missing. Okay, maybe I want to go deeper and look into that on that research side of it. Or maybe I want to go more creative and think about the advertising. So this just connects some more ideas for people, which is really helpful. Looking at this in action, this is just an example. I'm taking 3 different kind of scenarios. So say somebody is looking to be a project manager, another person's looking to be a lab technician, another person looking to work into IT. Knowing that, we can expand those keywords. So for example, knowing what industry that they're looking at, that can really change the search engines I use. So if someone wants to be a lab technician and they want to work in healthcare, then looking at what are those healthcare search engines is really helpful. And we'll talk more about that. The company and why this is helpful, obviously, like very linear, easy, is that I am interested in Virgin Pulse and I find a company that I find those Virgin Pulse jobs, or I find a company who works with Virgin Pulse. This works especially well for people who might be like in the environmental field and they really would love to work for the EPA. But gosh, I'm not finding EPA jobs right now. However, if I search and I put EPA as a keyword, I can find organizations that work with EPA or that have to do a lot with EPA standards. And that's really helpful because now it makes me relevant and it gets me closer to where I want to be. The job title, like we just looked at, there can be a ton of different job titles really for the same type of thing. ONET being one great resource, the other one being you as you search and you look and you say, gosh, I keep seeing these titles come up. Last one I want to mention is the key skills area. So you can think about this as in, I just have a skill that I really want to use. I really want a job that talks about critical thinking or that talks about those interpersonal communication or negotiation. Or I can think about what connects it. So maybe I'm somebody who wants to work in fundraising, and I noticed that a lot of people in fundraising use Salesforce as a system. Great. Then maybe Salesforce becomes one of those skills. So that skill could be something that is a soft skill, less tangible, but I know it's important to me and I want somebody else who says, yes, we want that communicator. Or it can be a technical skill and it's another way of getting me, once again, closer to what I'm looking for. So the search engine piece. One great start from go is to put in what you know. Sometimes the job search can be kind of confusing and we just saw that people can use a lot of different titles for the same job. So I might start by saying, listen, I know I'm looking for full-time. I know I'm looking for part-time. I know it has to be within a certain area. I know I have to make a certain amount of money. And so let me start weeding out things from the beginning. I know that I'm at the beginning of my career, or I know that I'm mid or late in my career. And I want to make sure that I'm looking at those entry-level, mid-level, or director level type positions. The thing I just mentioned with industry, knowing there are certain jobs, I could be in accounting, I could be in IT, I could be in manager, project management, and that goes across so many different industries. But knowing there's a certain industry that interests me means I can go back and find those sites. And we'll review a couple of them in a minute. The other one mentioning the get personal. If you know there's a company that you really like, you can sign up for what they might call a job agent or their job board. And it just means instead of checking back at this company that may post jobs once every week or once every month, I can have them, give them my information and have them email me when something comes up. We'll review in a second the big, the small, and the niche, but I want to show you another resource. This one I like, it's called BuzzFile. So there's lots of different ways to do our job search. Most of us do a reactive where we are looking and we are putting, we are saying, here's what I'm looking for, who's looking for it now, let's match. But we can do the same thing and go the opposite way and say, I'm looking to do something like this. Who are the companies who hire in that field? So this is going just a little bit backwards. So we don't know that company is hiring today, but we know they have a habit of hiring. So for example, we're just going to jump here and say, let's look at linguistics. Let's close our advertisements. And let's look in Massachusetts. And what's going to come up is a list of companies who have hired people who majored in linguistics in Massachusetts. And I can say, oh, okay, here's the company. Here's what type of company it is. And is it really like a big company? So these having, almost 1,000 employees, yes. As I drop to the bottom and it has 10 employees, okay, that's a much smaller company. The odds of them hiring are less. But knowing that there are these big companies, especially if I'm moving to a different state, especially if I'm just starting off in my career, this can be a really helpful tool. And once again, think about kind of that industry or the job you want. So let's say you graduated 10 years ago and your undergraduate degree is in Spanish, but what you really want to be doing now is more of a kind of sociology type. Well, then I should be looking at those who are hiring sociology majors, just because I'm trying to identify the companies. So I'm trying to know who's out there that I might want to start to follow and learn more about. So that big, small niche, and this is always my advice and it's basically testing, right? So we go and we look, and there's large search engines, and they're huge and they're easy, and they usually have very smooth and easy to search through. And so a lot of people like them, but they may not be great for your field. It just depends. Sometimes it depends on the timing of the year. Sometimes it depends on the industry. Sometimes it depends on the position. A company might post those high-level positions because they need a wider net. Those positions pay more, but they might not post all their entry-level positions. So it's good to try a few different ones. So the big ones that we commonly hear, small or smaller. So USA Jobs is not a small search engine, but it's smaller. It's more focused than looking at an Indeed. So same thing with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They're not small by any means, but career is not their primary work. There's a whole lot that now overlaps, and you can follow hashtags and you can follow different job threads, and that's going to be really helpful. So they're smaller for that. Other ones that I'm highlighting here, Career One Stop. Every state has a state job search engine. What that means is it's usually the state itself. So the Department of Labor and Training or the Department of Employment, Unemployment, they are trying to get their employers in the state to highlight the jobs. So there's one special search engine, once again, really helpful, especially if you are switching states. Other one, Skills for Rhode Island's Future. So that's here in Rhode Island, but they match up and they actually have someone that's a little more hands-on. RICOM Jobs is an example. This is nonprofits in Rhode Island. And that's where I say Indeed is great, but Indeed and LinkedIn, which I use all the time when working with people, there's a fee. RICOM Jobs is no fee for a Rhode Island nonprofit to post their jobs. AngelList is for entrepreneurs. So it could be an entrepreneur trying to find another person to partner with, or it can be working for a startup company. So some really cool, unique opportunities there. And when I say niche, what I mean is something specific to an industry or something specific to a condition. So right here, I've highlighted remote jobs because that's something that people are asking a lot about. You can just say, I'm going to throw this in Google and say health industry job search engines, or I can put in technology. Couple examples up here. Dice is well known as being that leader in tech. School Spring for that K through 12. Another one for higher ed. So there are the big search engines that collect everything, but then there's ones that are really specific to the field. And we will take a peek at these real quick because I want to talk about efficiency. So lots of job search tools out there, lots of job search engines out there, but now let's make it faster. So number one is timing. And if I'm looking at a smaller search engine or a state job database, I can give myself up to 2 weeks. I still will say the faster, the better. But those jobs oftentimes, and I can tell you from the state, that they have to be posted for a certain amount of time, usually 2 weeks. Now, if I'm looking at the large search engines like an Indeed, when they're done, they're done. When they're full, they're full. Like they don't need to look through thousands and thousands. They can post a job and then say, gosh, the weekend hit, we have 500 applicants, we're going to stop and we're going to go through those. So really wanting to make sure that we apply as quick as possible. In general, I tell people, look at the jobs that are less than 7 days old on the large search engine. This is examples of utilizing the advanced features. So when it comes to efficiency, I want to make this as quick and easy as possible. And one area that we can definitely save time on certain engines is, instead of searching for a job, going and looking through the materials, coming back, searching again, we can search for multiple jobs at once. So this is something I like about Indeed. Right here, with this section with at least one of these words, I can search, and this is me working with other people, but we're going to go environmental for a second and say, okay, now I'm looking kind of mission oriented, right? I want to work for an organization that focuses on conservation. Or I want to work at the type of place that would be a zoo or aquarium. Or I want to use my GIS or AutoCAD skills. Or I know I like environmental education. And the reason the quotation marks are around it is anytime I want those two words to stay together, versus every time the word education pops up, every time the word environmental pops up, I see it. If I just put the quotation marks around it, it pulls it together. That works really well, especially with certain job titles. Like I want to look at marketing assistant. Well, every time the word marketing comes up, or every time the word assistant comes up, I'm going to have tons of results. But if I put quotation marks around marketing assistant, I can now get rid of a lot of extra work and narrow that down. So if I use this area with at least one of these words, I can search for all those jobs at one time. I can also use other things, like I can eliminate the sales. I can be specific that I has to have this, like it has to be in healthcare, and it's going to have, healthcare in there, but then I'm going to use different search words. So you can play with all of those. We'll search near North Kingstown, 25 miles, 7 days. This is just me not wanting to search through a bunch of stuff. I usually organize, so I see the newest at the top. And then I can refine. This has 40. Now, if I put in communication or marketing or analysis, I'm going to get a ton other stuff. But with 40, I can definitely search through 40 real quick. If I did a search where I had a ton more results, that's when I'm going to lean on all these extra things. Experience, whether I want it remote, salary, full-time versus part-time. We can use this same thing and do it on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, this is kind of a little, not everyone is always sees this part. But if I use or in capital letters, I can do the same thing. So right here, you're seeing some of my past searches. So put in marketing specialist, or capital letters, marketing coordinator, or music industry. And then same idea. There's so many things, because right now we're looking in New York City, but I'm going to refine back to past week. I want to be entry level, so entry or an internship. I want this full time. So I can keep refining. If I find, oh gosh, there's just too much, I can close in that distance again. My goal when I'm doing this search is to have less than 200, definitely, to make it fast and to make sure that the words I'm using as keywords are really working for me. Outside of that, we already mentioned the setting up for company of interest, making sure that I'm getting their job notifications as they come up. Following the directions. It's kind of simple, but it's when you have a lot of competition, this is a really easy way for companies to weed people out, is just, did they follow the directions? Did they turn everything in the way we wanted it? Do we see all the materials? An example of this is a lot of times nobody really likes answering the salary question. So if I don't answer the, what are my salary requirements? Does that weed me out? Did I not follow the directions? Mostly where this is really important is when you're looking at government jobs. So government jobs, it's usually especially federal government, a very slow process, and there's a stop at each place. And if you look, a lot of those departments, those agencies will tell you how to do it, what their resume should look like, what the process can look like. But if you don't follow the directions, you get weeded out real quick. So make sure that you're following that. The other thing is, even if you're not sure, apply and let them be the deciders. Now, I've worked with companies like Amica, and Amica has a job they'll post, and there's a $50,000 difference from in the salary range, which is incredible. That's huge. But the difference is, if they hired somebody who has a ton of experience, who's at the top, who's really established in the industry, and it's going to take them so much less training and investment there, they can start them at the high end of the salary. They're happy to hire somebody who is more green, more new to the industry, but they know it's going to be a bigger investment. And so that person will start lower. Okay, so I have a chance. It's just a matter of fit, which none of us really like to hear. We want more tangible, but fit is a big component of it. The other thing we see constantly is that there's a big difference between applicants based on gender, that those who identify as female are much less likely to apply unless they are 100%, and those who identify as male, usually somewhere around 60%. What I tell people to be respectful of your own time is that if you're reaching about 75% of the qualifications, it's worth applying. You can apply to anything and throw your hat in the ring, and sometimes dumb luck and timing really are your best friends. Other times you have a lot of competition. We don't always know. When you can, the direct contact, talking to a person, always best. That's always a great opportunity. If you have a friend that works in the company, if you have had informational interviews and you've gotten to know another URI alum who works there, ask them to refer you. And sometimes some companies give them bonuses if you get hired, so it can benefit them. Other times it just makes you less of a risk. You're a little bit more trusted because there's a closer connection to you and that company. All right, so we're going to wrap up this part. Couple, just this slide and two more, I think. Beyond the computer, we talk a lot about computers. Computer really is that reactive search. We like it. Most of us like it because we have control over it, because it works at 11 o'clock at night when I'm doing my search. There's a convenience factor. We also know there's a lot of competition that way too. So how do I get beyond the computer? Maybe the computer is not super comfortable for me, or maybe I just it hasn't been working. Think about your education. So now sometimes people will say, oh, yes, I have all this management experience, but I'm looking at a human resource job, so I want to get a human resource certificate. I've had a lot of people right now who have been really interested in data analyst certificates. We have new industries that are becoming of interest and really prevalent, and people might specialize in that industry or specialize in a skill set. Going back and looking at what degree you are in the process of, or as you have finished, these are all areas where I have the chance to make connections. It's all about networking. That degree or that certification or that course might make me relevant. It might be the key that opens up that door. But remember all the people that are connected to it. And these are all individuals that could be part of my job search and could be put me a lot closer and let me know what's happening that might not be posted online. Same thing when we say, who's your support system? And a lot of times, this can be an area that feels uncomfortable for people because they're not sure, or they feel like, well, I went to school for one thing, so I have to be looking for that field. Doing a little bit of work and kind of a self-assessment, say, this is what interests me, or here are the skills I want to be using in my position, or here's who I want to work with. Those questions I put at the beginning, those can be really helpful to then communicate to others. So you might say, you know what, I am really interested in the field of marketing, and I went to school for communications, so it's related, but I look at marketing now and the analysis, and I think that works really well with my creativity, and there could be all these opportunities to utilize my communication skills to really connect to an audience or connect different stakeholders together. Okay, if I can give somebody that much information, They might see something different. They might see a different connection that they can tell you about, or they just have you in the back of their mind. So remember all these different areas, whether it is a sport related, religious related, family. If you're reaching out, we have URI Career Connect that just launched last fall. So that has about 1,200 URI alumni who are saying, yes, come reach out to us. We want to help somebody. There's also awesome groups. There are ones, if you want to stay connected to URI, like the Young Alumni Council, the Alumni of Color Network, and the Women's Leadership Group, that I find to be the most active of them. Other ones that are also awesome, but I just see them hosting the most events. You might say, I really am curious about that entrepreneurship thing. So a place like Venture Cafe or doing the business competitions, even if you're not presenting a business, but you're just there in the conversation, you're connecting with people the whole time. Other groups like the United Way has a leadership circle that is specifically for young leaders. And so do some of the chambers. Chambers have reach everybody, some being specific to young professionals, some more for established professionals. Volunteering and internships, even if you've graduated, this is available to you. Also, remember, it comes at different levels. So sometimes I'm looking for just something that I can exercise and show my skills. Other times I want to be connecting with others that are leaders across whatever area. And those boards of directors can really open up an opportunity to network beyond what my normal scope is. Here's where I mentioned the Firsthand Career Connect. So check that one out. And quick pointer, a lot of times people say searching for a job is a job. It depends on how much time you want to put into it. The big thing I want to stress in this is that it shouldn't become everything, because that usually leads to a lot of frustration and resentment and kind of gives you that downward spiral of being overly emotionally connected to it. And that's hard to then recover. But if you know it's something I'm doing and I'm working towards, and it's part of a bigger picture, but I'm going to be respectful of my time and give myself a limited time. I'm going to make sure that when I get frustrated, that I find a different way. So if I'm frustrated on the computer, let me directly connect with somebody. If I find, and I've researched and I see, gosh, this site doesn't have many jobs, but when I apply there, I get further in the process, great. Now I'm really starting to understand what's going to be a helpful tool for me. And then taking breaks. Quick things, applicant tracking systems, what are they? They are just like any search engine. And this plays a lot more into tomorrow's conversation on resumes, but on yours, it's those keyword piece. What are the words in the job description? Am I putting them as my search words, and are they in my resume when I apply? A lot of times I get asked about, ooh, this seems too good. I'm not sure. They're not really telling me what I'm doing, so I want some more information. Here are some resources to check to see if a company is a real company. So Better Business Bureau is a great one. Glassdoor is really helpful to understand, is there something kind of funky going on, or can I ask some better questions? Remember, when people post that, they're usually on one end or the other. They're really upset or they're really happy. Sometimes you get somebody in between, but big thing is I use these as more of a guide. How many jobs are not posted? So many different views on that. Some people will say 75, 80%. We don't know. I mean, they're not posted. It's a mystery. But the big thing is that direct connection and that networking can really help you know when something is going to come or how some jobs get posted. Sometimes it's a grant and it's not being posted. There's not a big job search, but it's something that really is a paid position. Should I post my job on my resume on search engines? It's completely your decision if you like to or not. Usually I leave my phone number off. How many jobs should I apply to? I say if you're doing a strictly online one, then it's usually about 10% response rate, somewhere between 5 and 10%. So measure the amount of jobs you're applying like that. And then the big last one, the myth busting of everyone else has it figured out. Everyone says that and everyone comes here with the same thing, but then you find, well, if everyone's saying it, they really don't. Some of us feel stronger, some of us do kind of continue ourselves in motion, but for most of us, this is frustrating, it's confusing, it's kind of a bit of a roller coaster of excitement of possibility and then uncertainty. So that's a normal, even when it feels not normal. You have a career advisor, Karen Rubano. She's available to connect and have phone appointments or video appointments. So that's a free resource to URI alumni. If you are a graduate student, you have Kara Mitnick. And if you are an undergraduate student, you have a career education specialist. So everyone has somebody that is a free resource to them. And then next up will be Tomorrow Resumes, cover letters, and you can look and see all of our upcoming events.